Episode 56 IJFM September 5, 2023. At Africa Climate Summit, activists say Kenya caved in, allowing logging as of July 2023. Faster version, ROZEP view, at the Africa Climate Summit taking place this week in Nairobi, Kenya, September 4 through 8, 2023, activists say Kenya caved in, allowing logging again as of July 2023. Kenya's logging ban has been lifted. It's a political decision and a likely setback for conservation, said an article on July 22, 2023. Kenya's logging ban was said to leave timber traders high and dry in May 2021. In another African nation, Gabon's forest-friendly president was kicked out in a coup on August 31, 2023. But in a third African nation, the Congo, the company called Nuru means light in Swahili, a solar energy company, is providing streetlights and cinema nights via clean electricity even to Congo's village of Goma. Congo's Nuru is an exception because clean energy financing does not favor developing and/or poor nations. Clean energy projects would help stabilize their countries and economies, African nations say, reducing the very risk that investors say they fear. It's an issue that looms large this week at a climate summit in Kenya, as it will at COP28 climate talks sponsored by the United Nations later this year in Dubai, United Arab Emirates, UAE. The United Nations Climate Summit of 2023, COP28, will take place from November 30 until December 12, 2023. Pre-sessions will take place from November 24 to 29, 2023. Jeff Bezos is the owner of Amazon.com, Earth Fund and the Rockefeller and IKEA foundations agreed to put in the majority of the recent Nuru funding in the Congo. While the financing is a major breakthrough for Nuru, the company is receiving it at an interest rate of more than 15%, 5 times as high as interest rates for many renewable energy projects in wealthier countries where companies have easier access to credit. The Congo has a large population, so it's seen as less risky an investment than the small country of Sierra Leone. One of Sierra Leone's hydroelectric projects struggles to get a loan. An expert co-wrote a paper last year outlining the flow of climate investments into Africa, which found that a vast majority of what was already a small pool of money went to just a few of Africa's most advanced economies, like Egypt, Morocco and South Africa. https://www.newyorktimes.com/2023/09/04/climate/climate-finance-congo-kenya-cop.html $1 clean energy projects are booming everywhere. Except in poor nations. A big obstacle is the lack of loans, a subject of intense disagreement between richer and poorer countries. But in Congo, a hard-fought solar investment shows a possible path forward. The future site of a solar plant in Goma, Democratic Republic of Congo. Reporting from the Democratic Republic of Congo, where a solar company recently raised more than $70 million. September 4, 2023. The world is racing ahead with enormous investments in renewable energy, for the first time this year plowing more money into solar power than oil. But the world's poorest countries, mostly in Africa, are effectively priced out of the action by a global lending system that considers them too risky for investment. Only 2% of global investment in renewable energy has been in Africa, where nearly 1 billion people have little or no access to electricity. Excerpts edited by ROZEP for brevity and clarity and relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. Clean energy projects would help stabilize their countries and economies, Africa's leaders say, reducing the very risk that investors say they fear. It's an issue that looms large this week at a climate summit in Kenya, as it will at climate talks sponsored by the United Nations later this year in Dubai. It also preoccupies Archip Lobo, whose company, against the odds, raised $70 million in international funds this year to build solar-powered microgrids in which it distributes to 2,500 businesses and homes in Goma. The site of the company's first urban microgrid is in Goma. Nuru negotiated a partnership with a consortium of philanthropic funds, anchored by the Bezos Earth Fund and the Rockefeller and IKEA foundations, that agreed to put in the majority of the recent Nuru funding. The consortium is known as the Global Energy Alliance for People and Planet. With the money, Nuru will increase its urban microgrids in Congo to 4, from 1, and be able to produce 13 times as much electricity. The company eventually hopes to provide millions of Congolese with cheaper and more reliable electricity than what is produced by the diesel generators that most now use. More than 70 million of Congo's 100 million people cannot afford or access electricity. Its population is currently growing faster than new electricity customers are being brought online. A woman owns a small shop in Goma that previously relied on diesel generators for electricity. I pay 3 times less to Nuru than what I paid for diesel, so you can imagine what it means for my business, said the woman, 27, who runs a shop where people can make photocopies, print banners, upload videos, and surf the internet. That diesel generator, too, it always surged. We would lose machines that way. While the financing is a major breakthrough for Nuru, the company is receiving it at an interest rate of more than 15%, 5 times as high as interest rates for many renewable energy projects in wealthier countries where companies have easier access to credit. The clincher, said the owner of Nuru, was getting investors to actually come to Congo. That was only made harder by an Ebola epidemic in the region and then COVID-19, as well as unrest that is so persistent it rarely makes global headlines. On the day a New York Times reporter arrived in the city of Goma to visit Nuru's existing microgrid, state security forces killed more than 40 people who were gathering for a protest against the presence of a long-standing UN peacekeeping force widely seen as ineffective and a source of corruption. A day later, Goma was back to its usual bustle. Investors are human beings too, Nuru's owner said. Once you come here and see the hunger for energy, the potential for growth, you can finally look past the risks and see what a transformative investment this will be, a real, genuine business opportunity. What African leaders gathering in Nairobi, Kenya, this week for the first-ever Africa Climate Summit hope to do is persuade global investors and multinational development banks like the International Monetary Fund that African companies need not only more deals like Nuru's but also better ones. A cinema hall in Goma that has operated longer hours since it began buying power from Nuru. Streetlights powered by Nuru. There's a term, concessional, for certain kinds of international loans that are designed to help less wealthy international borrowers. The idea is that loans might have below-market interest rates or grace periods for repayment. Nuru's loan is anything but concessional. But the idea is to prime the pump for bigger investments. The multinational banks are the ones who need to be the mobilizers in chief, said a woman, an expert on climate finance in Africa at the Climate Policy Initiative, a non-profit research group. They've made promises to reform, but they are not following through fast enough. The expert co-wrote a paper last year outlining the flow of climate investments into Africa, which found that a vast majority of what was already a small pool of money went to just a few of Africa's most advanced economies, like Egypt, Morocco and South Africa. In smaller countries like Sierra Leone, those seeking to develop renewable energy face an even steeper uphill battle than Nuru, which has Congo's large population and famed natural resources. A Sierra Leonean engineer has been trying to raise money for a hydroelectric project in a rural area of the country for a decade. For a dam that costs $80 million, a humble sum. All the groundwork is complete. The money is the only thing. The dam project, while small, could change the whole course of Sierra Leone's history, he said, providing power to as many as 2 million people who now lack it. The big banks are too risk-averse to see that, he said. So the rest of the world will ride a Ferrari, and we stay on the bicycle. The reporter covers the geopolitics of climate change. He has been based in India, Kenya and Ukraine and reported from more than 30 countries. Geothermal energy. An ambitious effort is underway to unlock vast amounts of geothermal energy from Earth's hot interior, a source of renewable power that could help displace fossil fuels that are dangerously warming the planet. Some are trying to unlock it by using techniques from the fracking boom. EU farmers. To meet climate goals, some European countries are asking farmers to reduce livestock, relocate or shut down, and an angry backlash has begun reshaping the political landscape. Projects was unconstitutional. If you struggle to understand the science behind climate change, let us walk you through the basics. What's causing global warming? How can we fix it? Our FAQ will tackle your climate questions, big and small. What can you do at home to help stem climate change? Simple measures like controlling the thermostat, composting and switching to electric appliances can make a big difference. Replacing all of our polluting machines with electric versions could be the key to fighting climate change. But electrifying almost everything is a formidable task. Is carbon capture really an effective counterweight to the overheating planet? Here's how these technologies work. Half the world could soon face dangerous heat. We measured the daily toll it is already taking. New data reveals stark disparities in how different U.S. households contribute to climate change. See your neighborhood's climate impact. Raw View, President Bongo of Gabon won the recent election, but on August 31, 2023 a coup brought him down. He was known as a climate advocate for Forests Africa, Gabon. Coup August 2023 https://www.newyorktimes.com/2023/08/311/world/africa/ali-bongo-gabon-coup.html search result position =1A darling of the West. He wore out his welcome at home. Hailed as a climate visionary, Gabon's president, Ali Bongo Ondimba, was once welcomed to Buckingham Palace but was blindsided by this week's coup. President Ali Bongo Ondimba of Gabon and his French-born wife, Sylvia Bongo, in 2019, during celebrations marking the country's independence from France in 1960. The chief Africa correspondent, reported from Nairobi, Kenya. The West and Central Africa Bureau chief from 2015 to 2019, reported from New York. August 31, 2023 As the all-powerful ruler of oil-rich Gabon, Ali Bongo Ondimba had two passions, music and forests, that forged powerful ties across the world. Excerpts edited by Rozep for brevity and clarity and relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. To his own people, Mr. Bongo, 64, embodied a family dynasty, founded by his father, which had dominated Gabon for 56 years, until this week, when it came crashing down. Military officers seized power on Wednesday, hours after election officials declared Mr. Bongo the winner of a disputed election last weekend. Few saw it coming, not least the president. When his own guards came for him, Mr. Bongo seemed genuinely bewildered. Video from the channel Gabon 24 on Wednesday showing soldiers carrying General Brice Oligui Nguema, head of the Presidential Guard, which ousted Mr. Bongo. "I don't know what's going on," Mr. Bongo, speaking from his home, said in a video that was authenticated and circulated by some of his many Western advisors. "I'm calling on you to make noise." It was the latest in a blaze of military takeovers of African countries, toppling weak governments. Déjà coup, said one analyst from Sudan, which had its own coup in 2021. But while other takeovers were prompted by violent upheaval, in peaceful Gabon it was something else, a sign that the Bongo rule, which held fast for a half-century, had run its course. There was no sign of Mr. Bongo on Thursday, a day after his plaintive cry for help. The coup leader General Brice Oligui Nguema, a cousin of Mr. Bongo, announced he would be sworn in as transitional president next Monday, September 4, 2023. Other African leaders, fearing they might be next, took precautions. In neighboring Cameroon, President Paul Biya, in office for 40 years and, at age 90, the world's oldest serving leader, announced a sudden reshuffle of his country's military leadership. So, too, did Rwanda, which like Gabon has for decades been ruled by one man. As Mr. Bongo's fate hung in the balance, reactions differed. Foreign conservationists expressed worries about what comes next for a country that worked so hard to preserve its pristine forests and seas. Recently, Gabon negotiated a landmark $500 million debt refinancing deal that freed $163 million for marine protection. A power vacuum could lead to a free-for-all where poaching, illegal logging and deforestation increase, said a professor of global change science at University College London, who has advised Gabon on climate policy. The prospect of the Gabonese people gaining major income from their forests could evaporate. In Libreville, Gabon's crowded seaside capital, the verdict was more mixed. "I am free," cried Alafine, a young woman in a crowd of. "Forest and roads are few." As oil prices soared in the last quarter of the 20th century, the Bongo family reigned like an undeclared monarchy. President Omar Bongo took power in 1967. After Omar Bongo died in 2009, the torch passed to Ali, who won the presidential election that year. French investigators accused Mr. Bongo and his family of corruption. Some wealth also flowed down. In Libreville, Gabon last year. Education and healthcare levels are significantly higher in Gabon than elsewhere in the region. Gifted students are sent to France on government scholarships. Its timber industry provides 30,000 jobs. The U.S. Agency for International Development classifies Gabon as a middle-income country. But poverty is rife. A report by McKinsey in 2013 estimated that 30% of Gabonese lived on $140 a month. Yet even in the poorest parts of Libreville living conditions are better than in much of the region. Mr. Bongo's kitchen cabinet is filled with Western advisors who stroll through government offices and in one case was appointed a minister, a British-born scientist, who since 2019 has been Minister of Water, Forests, the Sea, and Environment. About 15 years ago, Mr. Bongo began focusing on the country's forests, home to western lowland gorillas, forest elephants, chimps and mandrills, and part of the Congo Basin, one of the world's most important carbon sinks. Omar Bongo created 13 national parks covering 10% of Gabon's landmass, and Ali Bongo continued that passion. He courted powerful, wealthy allies. Last year King Charles, who has praised Mr. Bongo's policies, welcomed him to Buckingham Palace. On a visit to Gabon, Jeff Bezos, the Amazon founder, pledged $35 million for forest preservation. King Charles III and Mr. Bongo at Buckingham Palace, in 2022. Mr. Bongo's advocacy opened doors to a potential fortune in carbon credits, billions of dollars that Mr. Bongo has urged the West to pay Gabon to help preserve its rainforests. But Mr. Bongo's system began to show cracks. After the financial crash of 2008, a fall in oil prices hit Gabon hard. As the economy slumped, inequality grew more pronounced. In forest communities, farmers complained that growing numbers of hungry elephants, a direct result of Mr. Bongo's anti-poaching efforts, were eating their crops. "Let the elephants vote for him," was a slogan of critics during the 2016 election. In that vote, Mr. Bongo bared his knuckles to stay in power. In his strongholds, voter turnout was an improbable 99%. Security forces encircled the opposition party headquarters and at least one person was killed. Founder of the exiled opposition group Bongo Must Go, said oil revenues did help Gabon's people. Mr. Bongo upon his return to the country in 2019 after medical treatment in Morocco. In 2019 Mr. Bongo suffered a stroke and disappeared for 10 months, re-emerging with a cane. His relationship with France faltered, he welcomed Chinese and other investment, and last year Gabon joined the British Commonwealth. Since 2020, a series of coups has shaken West Africa, first in Mali, then Burkina Faso, Guinea, Sudan and, last month, Niger. Despite threats and sanctions from African and Western powers, none was reversed. President Bola Tinubu of Nigeria warned of a contagion of autocracy, with emboldened soldiers in other countries deciding they should take over, too. Few imagined Mr. Bongo was in immediate danger. But then he pushed ahead with a contentious election, and the coup makers, led by his own cousin, brought contagion to his door. https://www.standardmedia.co.ke/business/article/2001430966/logging-ban-leaves-timber-traders high and-dry, Kenya's logging ban leaves timber traders high and dry. Standard Media of Kenya. May 17, 2021. Photo of logs of wood. The ban on logging in public forests 3 years ago has had mixed results, environmentalists say. The Environment Ministry in 2018 imposed a nationwide ban on timber harvesting in all public and community forests to allow reassessment and rationalization of the entire forest sector in the country following calls to save the main water towers. But while it has helped improve forest cover, it has also seen the prices of timber more than double as traders cash in on increased demand amid a biting shortage. According to Earth Journalism Network, an Internews Europe project, more than 100,000 hectares of the Mau forest had been destroyed as of the year 2000. And according to United Nations Environment Programme, UNEP, up to 107,000 hectares of the Mau forest complex's 416,000 hectares were destroyed between 1990 and 2001. Banks fueling climate crises by funding harmful projects, report Premium. UN agency leads calls for fast tracking of global climate loss and damage fund. Environmentalists also claim the initiative has not done much in boosting forest cover but has instead created a shortage that has, in turn, led to unchecked cutting down of trees in private farmlands to fill the gap. Initially, the state had planned to improve forest cover by 10% by 2022, a target that now seems out of reach. The Environment Ministry last year said 48 billion shillings is needed to implement the strategy, with Environment and Forestry Principal Secretary lamenting the lack of financial support from the National Treasury. Other stakeholders say the ban has nearly doubled the demand for timber products, making Kenya a net importer of wood from countries such as Malawi, Uganda, Congo and Tanzania. Kinoro David, a Nairobi-based timber trader who imports timber from Malawi through Tanzania, said it takes him over 1 week to get the cargo into the country. There is high demand for timber driven by the construction sector and furniture business. Before the 2018 ban, we sold a board foot, BF, for 40 shillings, but the price has more than doubled to 100 shillings. Most of the imported timber includes pine, cypress and mahogany. Uganda, Malawi, and Tanzania are the key source markets for pine and cypress, while mahogany is mainly sourced from Congo. The National Alliance of Community Forest Association secretary noted that since the implementation of the logging ban, tea factories, schools and other institutions dependent on public forests for wood products have been affected greatly. Public forests produce the bulk of wood used locally. We are seeing massive harvesting of trees going on in private farms to fill the supply gap, which is still not enough, said Mr. Natia. Sawmillers, who depended on public forests, are facing the auctioneer's hammer. The government imposed a moratorium on logging in public and community forests in 2018. The Ministry of Environment has implemented the ban in phases. Initially, it started as a 3-month ban before it was increased to 6 months and later 1 year. Last November, Environment Cabinet Secretary partially lifted the logging ban in public and community forests. Despite the partial lifting of the ban, Timber Manufacturers Association, TMA, say the industry is still bleeding from the government's directive, with many sawmillers forced to close shop amid piling debts. TMA Communications Secretary said the industry directly employs 50,000 people and relies on government forests for timber. He said the move had left mature trees set for harvest to rot away. He added that the industry injected close to 500 million shillings annually into the economies of such towns as Njoro, Elburgon, Molo and Timberoa, which have now been left desolate. Kenya has a forest cover of 7.4% of its land area compared to 12% 50 years ago. The ban restricted the extraction of timber from the forests to give KFS more time to implement measures to protect forests. https://kenyas-logging-ban-has-been-lifted-and-a-likely-setback-for conservation-209981 Kenya's logging ban has been lifted. It's a political decision and a likely setback for conservation. July 22, 2023. Written by an independent researcher, French Institute for Research in Africa in Nairobi, IFRA Nairobi. We believe in the free flow of information. Republish our articles for free, online or in print, under a Creative Commons license. Republish this article. Excerpts edited by Rozep for brevity and clarity and relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. Kenyan President William Ruto has lifted a 6-year ban on logging, despite public objections. Ruto said it would create jobs and boost economic growth. The reporter has studied the Mau Forest Complex, one of Kenya's most important, and most threatened, forests. She unpacks the implications of this decision. A logging ban is a political instrument. Its effectiveness depends mainly on 2 things. First, who is included and who is not. Second, the political will to implement it according to its intention. The same applies for lifting a logging ban. Kenya's latest logging ban was introduced in 2018. This government directive came amid discussions to save Kenya's water towers. Deforestation in Kenya rose steeply from the early 1990s. The deforestation rate in Kenya was 5,000 hectares per year by 2010. Deforestation affected biodiversity, river flows and the microclimate, and impacted agricultural production, hydropower generation and inland fish production. Human health and well-being were also affected. Environmentalists have argued that lifting this latest ban risks reversing the gains made in recent years to improve Kenya's tree cover. The country surpassed its 10% minimum tree cover target in June 2022. It now plans to raise tree cover to 30% by 2032 by planting 15 billion trees. Trees and forests provide ecosystem services like air, climate and water regulation. Read more. How politics has subverted conservation efforts to protect Kenya's Mau forest. The reporter studied Kenya's failure to save the Mau. This was the tagline of a large-scale campaign to rehabilitate the Mau Forest Complex in 2009. Ruto, as Minister for Agriculture, 2008 to 2010, and as Deputy President, 2013 to 2022, has repeatedly defended this stance. How have previous logging bans in Kenya played out? A similar ban existed between 1999 and 2011. In 1999, the country's forests were in a bleak state. Post-box sawmillers, companies that existed on paper but not in practice, were held responsible for much of the disaster, alongside the Forestry Department, which was in charge of registering and licensing them. The ban/moratorium nullified these sawmillers' licenses. It restricted them from legal logging, denying them access to public forests. What many people don't know is that this ban was only partial. Kenya's big timber-producing companies, Tim Sales, Riply, Comply and, intermittently, Pan-African paper mills, continued harvesting, processing, and selling wood, timber, and non-timber forest products without restriction. These politically well-connected companies held a monopoly over the production and export of wood products. In 1999, forest management was still regulated by the 1960 Forest Act. This law was widely held responsible for legal forest destruction by allowing the Minister for Forestry to convert the legal status of public forest land through a simple order published in the Government Gazette. However, even after the adoption of the landmark 2005 Forests Act and the formation of the Kenya Forest Service in 2007, the situation didn't change as much as it should have. Existing regulations were poorly applied. Corruption played a part in forest destruction by both big timber companies and small-scale sawmillers. The Kenya Forest Service has repeatedly been named in this context in both academic and public inquiries, including a 2018 investigation. What is the current political context? The political climate in Kenya is heated. Ruto has been under tremendous pressure since he took office in September 2022. The opposition has mobilized public protests over the cost of living. Sending a message about creating jobs can be read as an attempt to address people's worries related to the economy. At the same time, discussing forests can be interpreted as directly engaging opposition leader Raila Odinga, who led the Save the Mau campaign until its abrupt halt in 2010-11. Ruto and his allies played an important role in the halt. During Kenya's 2022 electoral campaign, Ruto promised change and economic empowerment through a bottom-up development model. Redistributing access to and benefits from the country's forests might speak to many rural people and communities who are dependent on forest commodities, and to their political representatives. And having inherited a deeply indebted economy, Ruto has been looking for new avenues to generate revenue. It will be particularly important to address the speculation over the lifting of the logging ban. The Environment Ministry recently said the ban had been lifted only in commercial forests. During my research in the Eastern Mau forest, it became evident that political changes which could result in a redistribution of access and user rights, led to what local residents described as a cutting craze. Timber companies, small and medium-sized sawmills, and even ordinary community members all took extremely short-term approaches to securing benefits from the forest and its resources. Short-term vision has harmed the country and the environment in Kenya and globally. Sustainable forest management includes both forest production and forest conservation. Africa, Kenya, Nairobi. Rozep View, 2 camps from Kenya, speaking at the Africa Summit this week. 1. The President of Kenya, William Ruto, Chairman of the Committee of African Governments on Climate Change, has also been accused of doublespeak. While calling for environmental conservation, he lifted a 6-year logging ban in July, reversing the previous government's efforts to mitigate damage to Kenyan forests. Neither Ruto nor his government responded to the letter by the civil society organizations. Kenyan President William Ruto has been vocal in calling for rich nations to be held accountable for fueling climate change. We need to make those who have brought us here to the climate crisis that we are experiencing, the emitters, be held accountable and a system that works for everybody, Ruto said in February. 2. On August 28, 2023, Mithika Mwenda, Executive Director of the Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance, criticized the Kenyan government for what he called an obsession with carbon markets. More than 400 African civil society organizations also signed an open letter to Ruto in August. It is a summit agenda that foregrounds the position and interests of the West, namely, carbon markets, carbon sequestration and climate-positive approaches. These concepts and false solutions are led by Western interests while being marketed as African priorities. In truth, though, these approaches will embolden wealthy nations and large corporations to continue polluting the world, much to Africa's detriment, it added. The summit has about 40 partners, and only a quarter are originally from the continent. 3. What are the controversies surrounding the summit? African nations have been adamant about their expectations for the summit, which include a push for richer nations to honor the $100 billion a year pledge made at COP15 in Copenhagen to help reduce greenhouse gas emissions and help African countries cope with the climate crisis. 4. There are more summits coming up. There have also been questions about whether African leaders are prioritizing other events happening about the same period like the Africa Food Systems Summit in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, and the G20 Summit in New Delhi, India, in a month when the UN General Assembly will also convene in New York. COP28 will be the latest of the annual global climate summits when it takes place in December. According to the summit organizers, their goal is to present a united front ahead of the COP28 summit in the United Arab Emirates on November 30, 2023. Africa, Kenya, Nairobi https://www.aljazeera.com/news/2023/9/4/africa-climate-summit-begins-in-Kenya-a-simple-guide Nairobi, Kenya. More than a dozen African leaders and some of the world's fiercest climate change campaigners are meeting in Kenya for the first Africa Climate Summit. The event, which is being held from Monday until Friday, has been convened to address Africa's increasing exposure to climate change and its associated costs on the continent. Climate Summit opens in Kenya as Africa demands more say and financing African Climate Summit, an opportunity to decolonize Africa's energy. Biden administration limits wetland protections to align with Supreme Court. How will the Fukushima water release affect the Pacific? Excerpts edited by Rozep for brevity and clarity and relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. Africa, according to the United Nations, accounts for only 2 to 3% of the world's carbon emissions but has been the continent most affected by global warming. The summit in Nairobi is being organized by the Kenyan government and African Union and is running in parallel with Africa Climate Week. Its theme is Driving Green Growth and Climate Finance Solutions for Africa and the World. The summit's declared goal is to influence climate commitments, pledges, and outcomes, including the Nairobi Declaration, a blueprint for Africa's green energy transition. According to the Science Direct database, since the beginning of 2022, at least 4,000 people have been killed and 19 million affected by extreme weather events in Africa. A 2022 UN report also estimated that Africa loses from $7 billion to $15 billion annually because of climate change. To help mitigate the effects of climate change, African countries need to raise an average of $124 billion annually, but so far, it has received only a fraction of that sum, $28 billion. Panels at the summit include financing climate action, scaling up international climate financing for Africa, investing in nature and biodiversity, and developing integrated, livable African cities. Who is attending the summit? According to Kenyan Environment Cabinet Secretary Soipan Tuya, at least 20 heads of states have confirmed their attendance at the summit, and 18,500 participants from across the world have registered and been accredited for the summit. About 30,000 delegates are also expected to attend the summit. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres, U.S. Climate Envoy John Kerry, COP28 Director General Majid al-Suwaidi, and COP28 President Sultan al-Jaber are among the high-profile dignitaries who have confirmed attendance. Cabinet ministers and business executives from across the continent are also participating in the climate talks in Nairobi. But it is still unclear which presidents will be in attendance because only the leaders of Burundi, Comoros, Ghana, Madagascar, Malawi, and Sierra Leone had arrived in the country. Connecticut, CT, Environment and Human Health Incorporated, EHHI, August 31, 2023, email. Wood smoke, EHHI needs to revisit the harmful effects of wood smoke and explain where we presently are with this issue. Environment and Human Health Incorporated, EHHI, has worked trying to protect people from wood smoke exposures for the past 15 years. Before all the serious wildfires and their wood smoke exposures that have affected so many people's health, wood smoke exposures were extremely dangerous, but did not affect large portions of the population. Because of this, the people who lived near people who burned wood were extremely harmed by the wood smoke, but because whole populations were not affected, EHHI had trouble getting this issue heard and regulated. Wood smoke is dangerous whether it is from wildfire exposures or smoke from neighbors' wood burning. Outdoor wood furnaces, OWFs, remain extremely dangerous as they burn 24 hours a day and the smoke enter neighbors' houses, even when their windows and doors are closed. The smoke stays close to the ground and travels for over 1/2 mile. Some people burn these appliances even in the summer months, as they heat their hot water with them. How much progress has EHHI made in regulating dangerous wood burning in order to protect people's health? EHHI sued the US EPA, along with a few other nonprofits, in order to get better emission standards for indoor wood stoves and for OWFs. We won our case, but OWFs remain very dangerous to neighbors. Although local health departments are empowered to shut down offending wood smoke appliances, because OWF supply heat. As far as we have followed this issue, local health departments have never shut one of them down, no matter how harm they cause a neighbor's health. If you burn wood recreationally, in fire pits, chimneys, etc., and the wood-burning smoke affects a neighbor, we have seen some health departments in CT shut that wood burning down. If a person tries to sue a neighbor for harming them with their wood burning, the offending neighbor's homeowner's insurance will pay for his defense lawyer, while the person who is harmed will pay full price for their lawyer hired to sue the neighbor. Now that so many people are experiencing the harmful effects of wood smoke, due to the constant threat of wildfires, EHHI is hoping that there will be a greater understanding about how dangerous wood smoke exposures are, and we will have greater successes in trying to help people get relief by getting better policies enacted. https://www.ai.org/wood-smoke-nuisance.php Wood smoke, nuisances. How wood smoke exposure enforcements in CT are divided between CT's deep and CT's local health departments. If offending wood smoke comes from an outdoor wood furnace, OWF, the Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, CT DEEP, will inspect the offending unit. If the OWF complies with the CT state statutes concerning OWFs, yet still harms neighbors, the DEEP will turn the issue over to the local health department in the town. If the OWF does not comply with state statutes, the DEEP will tell them that it will have to comply or be shut down. All other offending wood smoke issues are handled by the local government, usually by local health departments. Open brush burning, leaf and wood limbs, etc., need a permit from the town's fire marshal. Directives from the CT DEEP and the CT Department of Health concerning campfires, bonfires, fire pits, chimneys and other similar devices. This directive is from the CT DEEP and the CT Health Department. It is very important for CT local health directors to know that the burning of wood in a campfire, bonfire, chimney or other similar devices is prohibited if the burning is conducted so that it creates a nuisance for neighbors. A nuisance is considered to be the unreasonable, unwarranted, or unlawful use of one's property in a manner that substantially interferes with the use or enjoyment of another individual's real property, without an actual trespass or physical invasion to the land. If anyone in CT is being harmed by any of the wood-burning devices mentioned above, their local health director can shut them down as a public health nuisance. The burning of wood in a campfire, bonfire, chimney or other similar devices is prohibited if the burning is conducted so that it creates a nuisance for neighbors or it is in violation of any restrictions imposed on such burning by your local municipality. Campfires and/or bonfires are not defined by state statute or regulation. However, some towns have special requirements to conduct this type of burning and may require the homeowner to obtain a permit prior to having a campfire on his or her property. Special requirements may include limiting the size of such fires, setback distances from structures and/or property lines, lot size, and requiring campfires and/or bonfires to be permitted. United Kingdom, National Resources Defence Council and Real Renewables Avoiding Burning Wood Rosep View. This NDRC and Clean Technica article compares the energy generation and low or no pollution of what NRDC calls real renewables, which are zero or low emission renewables, wind and solar in the United Kingdom with polluting energy generation, which could be called dirty, renewable, or the dirty greenwashed energy of wood burning by Drax in the United Kingdom. Real renewables avoid burning 32 million tons of wood in UK. Clean Technica NRDC shows that real renewables like wind and solar are already alleviating the need to burn millions of tons of wood in UK power stations. In the first 6 months of 2023, January-June, the use of genuine renewables avoided the burning of 32 million tons of wood in bioenergy power stations, mainly Drax. Wind, solar, and hydro generated 44 TWh of electricity, according to the national grid. Agriculture real renewables avoid burning 32 million tons of wood in UK NRDC September 5, 2023. It's often claimed that the UK needs to burn American and Canadian forests in its power stations to stop the lights going out. But analysis by NRDC shows that real renewables like wind and solar are already alleviating the need to burn millions of tons of wood in UK power stations. In the first 6 months of 2023, January-June, the use of genuine renewables avoided the burning of 32 million tons of wood in bioenergy power stations, mainly Drax. Excerpts edited by Rosep for brevity and clarity and relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. Wind, solar, and hydro generated 44 TWh of electricity, according to the national grid. To produce the same amount of electricity from bioenergy would have required 32 million tons of wood pellets. That's 3.5 times the UK's current annual use of wood pellets, which stands at around 9 million tons. This would have required 501 shipments across the Atlantic, from Canada and the US Southeast, where the UK obtains most of its wood pellets. The largest single shipment to Drax Power Station was 63,907 tons. Renewables like wind and solar are so cheap they help reduce energy bills, while biomass is so expensive that it typically increases people's electricity costs. These levies on energy bills are used to pay for billions of subsidies the government issues every year to enable the industry stay afloat financially. Without this, burning trees in power stations would be too expensive to sustain itself through selling electricity alone. Contrastingly, wind and solar are now so cheap that they no longer need subsidies most of the time. Low-cost, clean renewables are helping to avoid the burning of millions of extra tons of trees. Bioenergy is incredibly expensive and pushes up energy bills, destroys forests, and poisons people's air. It also relies on huge imports of wood, weakening Britain's energy security. A clean, affordable, secure energy system is in reach, without burning trees, if we had more wind, solar, hydro, and battery storage. The government needs to end all subsidies for burning forests in power stations and focus on unblocking a backlog of real renewable projects waiting to connect to the grid. Nonetheless, the UK government is doubling down on burning even more wood in power stations, through its recent biomass strategy. However, it openly admits that by 2050 we may have nowhere near enough imported biomass to meet UK demand. Wind and solar on the other hand are free and readily available in the UK. Burning imported trees is no way to increase the UK's energy security or cut its carbon, but there's plenty of untapped potential in real renewables that could help reduce the UK's dependence on burning North American forests. Background information. Inspiration for methodology drawn from ECAU Power Tracker methodology, although any differences/errors are those of the author. Calculations, https://docs.google.com/spreadsheets/d/1is_FLM5_KQ5ZQ3GYU5G0JS605IEH. Monthly electricity generation from renewables, wind, solar, hydro, from National Grid ESO monthly statistics, https://www.nationalgrid.eso.com/electricity-explained/electricity-and-me/Great-Britain's-monthly-electricity stats. Biomass power plant efficiency of 29% from Drax Electric Insights, https://reports.electricinsights.co.uk/methodology/. Wood pellet energy net calorific value of 4.8 kWh per kilogram from Forest Research, https://www.forestresearchgovernment.uk/tools-and-resources/fthr/biomass energy resources/reference biomass/facts figures/typical calorific values of fuel/. Largest carrier shipment of wood pellets to Drax 63,907 tons, https://www.drax.com/press_release/drax's-largest-biomass-shipment-a. The UK's biggest biomass handling facility /NRDC. If you like what we do and want to support us, please chip in a bit monthly to help our team do what we do. Thank you. Sign up for daily news updates from Clean Technica on email. Or follow us on Google News. California, Tehachapi Eastern Kern Air Pollution Control District grant programs open October 1st. Tehachapi News. The Wood Smoke Reduction Program and DMV Vehicle Voucher Program are awarded on a first-come, first-served basis until all funding has been. Colorado Springs from wood blocks to poop buckets, how Burning Man organizers told festivalgoers to KRDO. In the case of rain, Burning Man emphasizes the importance of wood blocks to help keep generators and other electronic devices dry and electrical tape. Georgia, Atlanta Metro Atlanta Air Quality Alert issued for some residents. Patch Tuesday's AQI was 111. Air quality alerts are triggered by a number of factors, including the detection of fine particle pollution, known as PM2.5. Maryland, Baltimore COVID-19 Impact Analysis of PM2.5 Sensors Market 2031, The Baltimore Chronicle Global, PM2.5 Sensors, Market Trends and Insights is the title of OrbisResearch.com's most recent report. The Global PM2.5 Sensors Market Study. Minnesota air quality alert expanded to include western and northern Minnesota. Southern Minnesota news: the northern edge of the smoke plume should move into Minnesota, such as outdoor burning, and use of residential wood-burning devices. Minnesota, West Central Minnesota air quality alert is issued for West Central Minnesota through Wednesday morning. KXRA northwest winds will continue on Wednesday and smoke will begin to clear, such as outdoor burning, and use of residential wood-burning devices. Montana, Northeast Montana air quality takes a hit across Montana due to wildfire smoke. KRTV: a dense smoke advisory is in effect for northeastern Montana until 4 p.m. Tuesday. Reduce your use of fireplaces and wood stoves. Nevada Burning Man mass exodus begins after flooding trapped desert revelers. Al Jazeera: about 30,000 people remain at the site, with some waiting to see the burning of a large wooden effigy shaped like a man. Nevada Burning Man breakdown: how much pollution is the festival emitting? The street based solely on the fact that burning wood releases carbon that has been stored over decades, and can be just as harmful to the environment as. Nevada Burning Man revelers begin exodus after flooding left tens of thousands stranded in Nevada desert. WVR the event. New York, Buffalo states now at forefront of fights over wetlands protections after justices/federal rules. Buffalo News: PM2.5 causes the biggest risk to humans as it can be inhaled deep into human lungs and even enter the bloodstream. Pennsylvania, Erie: from woodblocks to poop buckets, how Burning Man organizers Erie News Now: from woodblocks to poop buckets, how Burning Man organizers told festivalgoers to prepare for heavy rain. By Zoe Sotilli, CNN, the first. Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh: U.S. Republican Catholic leaders in Pittsburgh say solutions to pollution intersect with other. National Catholic reporter: soot, microscopic airborne particles, known as PM2.5, is produced primarily from fossil fuel combustion, through vehicles and power plants as. Wisconsin, Middleton Rosep view: just because a wood-burning engine was employed 150 years ago, polluting the air, sickening the people and shortening their lives, is no reason to celebrate the wood-burning PM2.5 pollution of 1873. Wisconsin, Middleton wood-burning engine at train crossing in Middleton, 1873, Wisconsin State Journal. Wisconsin State Journal: men believed to be railroad workers in 1873 pose in front of a wood-burning engine at a train crossing in Middleton. United Kingdom, Bristol: people in Bristol using log burners could face £300 fines. BBC News: BBC Bristol City Council is expected to approve the new enforcement policy during a public meeting on Tuesday. Burning wood releases fine particles which United Kingdom, Bristol: burning wood releases fine particles which can cause serious health problems. The toxic particulate matter produced by burning is harmful to residents. It added, burning wood or coal pollutes the air inside and outside homes. The toxic particulate matter produced by burning is harmful to residents. United Kingdom, Bristolians using log burners to heat their homes could face new £300 fines. Bristol Live: burning wood can release harmful pollution which can cause serious health problems. People in Bristol using log burners could face fines of £300. ITV News: West Country ITVX: burning wood releases fine particulate matter which can cause serious health. When smoke is first spotted coming from a chimney, Bristol City. United Kingdom, Bristolians face new fine for using log burners to heat their homes. Planet Radio: burning wood releases fine particulate matter which can cause serious health problems such as asthma, heart disease, strokes, and lung cancer. United Kingdom, Bristol residents using log burners to heat their homes could face new £300 fines. Yahoo News UK: burning wood releases fine particulate matter which can cause serious health problems such as asthma, heart disease, strokes, and lung cancer. Asia, Central Asia and Europe: breathless beginnings, the alarming impact of air pollution on children in Europe and Central Asia. Relief Web: in Europe and Central Asia, air pollution, PM2.5 and PM10, is mostly caused by residential and commercial practices including the use of coal. India, Delhi's PM2.5 level fell by 46% in last 9 years. Gopal Rai Newsroom Odisha New Delhi, September 5, IANS, Delhi Environment Minister Gopal Rai claimed on Tuesday that in the last 9 years, the national capital's PM10 levels, Delhi's PM2.5 level fell by 46% in last 9 years. Gopal Rai Manafan.com New Delhi. Delhi Environment Minister Gopal Rai claimed on Tuesday that in the last 9 years, the national capital's PM10 levels fell by 42%. Thailand, Bangkok sugarcane burn-off affects 44 million people 6 months a year. Bangkok post sugarcane burn-off was a major generator of particulate matter 2.5 micrometers and less in diameter, PM2.5, he said. PM2.5 and human health. People with lung conditions face extra risks from climate change, URIC alert. Fine particles, PM2.5, and 40 micrograms per cubic meter for nitrogen dioxide in the EU compared to 5 micrograms per cubic meter for PM2.5. PM2.5 and human health. Air pollution linked to dementia cases. National Institutes of Health, NIH, National Institutes of Health, NIH, exposure to a type of air pollution called fine particulate matter, or PM2.5, has recently been identified as a potential risk factor for dementia. PM2.5 and technology. Air quality, health and equity implications of electrifying heavy-duty vehicles. Nature. We find decreases in nitrogen dioxide, NO2, and fine particulate matter, PM2.5, concentrations, but ozone, O3, increases, particularly in urban